Hello folks, and welcome to the Supplier Spotlight Tales of the Trade, where I'm going to be sitting down with some of the UK's most inspiring wedding professionals to uncover some stories, secrets and splendid surprises that get revealed by their craft. My name's Liam Ball, I'm your magical wedding host, also known as the Gentleman Magician, and today I'm joined by an artist whose work doesn't just capture moments, it immortalises them in brush and watercolour. Now, this particular supplier is a proud recipient of an OBE for his services. He also brings weddings to life with live painted scenes that are as elegant as they are timeless. So let's dip our brushes as we begin and step into the world of live event artistry with the remarkable Patrick Heisel. Hi Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Liam?
Yes, I'm very, very well, thanks very much. How is life treating you these recent warm summer days?
Nice to be warm for you scorchers. It's been lovely, actually. I've had some lovely weddings. I've attended beautiful weather. It's been really good, I have to say. Really, really lovely season.
Fantastic. It's certainly been a lovely season for weddings this year. So let's get straight into it. What was it that one day you woke up and thought, I'm going to be an artist? How did that happen?
How did that happen? Well, it didn't happen by design. It happened by accident, I have to say. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know what a live wedding artist was until it was revealed to me on Instagram. My love for art, however, has unfolded since I was little. Since I was in primary school, I had a good eye for detail. I had a steady hand. And being a Generation X kind of guy, I read a lot of comics and emulated a lot of what I saw. The beautiful art techniques that you would find in a number of comics then. I then did other things and only really seriously took up art and watercolour over the past 10 years and attended a number of courses, online workshops with the masters in watercolour. And then opened a small kind of business in terms of selling my art, focusing first on buildings and those sort of landscape scenes. And then I came across, as you do on Instagram, some reels of artists at weddings. And I'll never forget that image in my mind of an artist who I saw painting real time at an event, really beautiful surroundings. The sun was shining. He was in his moment, painting a beautiful scene. And then it came to revealing his art at the end of the event. And there was a round of applause, and the emotion and joy that I saw on the couple's faces was an absolute delight. And then since then, I thought to myself, that is what I want to do. I want to be a live wedding artist. And so it took a slightly different form of training. I had to look at doing various other things that I do differently now. And it's just since then took off, following a few weddings that I undertook a couple of years ago. It just seems to have just kind of begun to spiraled and grown as I put my material on Instagram. So it's well, that's how essentially it's come about.
That's really good to hear. I mean, I think probably, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I've seen over the years, I've seen one or two other, I think, live event artists. It's definitely becoming more popular. But what I've often seen from them is something which is, while it's the pictures they produce are lovely, they're sort of producing pictures for couples to take away with them and guests at the wedding, and then something grander for the couple themselves. Whereas certainly what I've seen with the things that you're producing, it's
Yes.
very much further down the road of a fine art piece, isn't it?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there. I mean, there are two types of live artists, if I can call them that. There's the live illustrator,
Yeah.
where they're the ones, if you like, who will draw guests. They use a range of different art mediums, and guests can take away that keepsake. I think that's a wonderful idea. Takes a different skill. You have to be very speedy, very quick, and produce a very good piece of art at the end of it. Then you've got guys like me, or who produce moments and scenes and so on. And then you've got others that can do this, the two in one. I can draw their guests and also produce something at the end of it. But the challenge for me, or an artist that's trying to produce a moment, a special moment, is the paint time. And a good watercolor takes, in my experience, at least 8 hours to
Okay.
produce. So invariably, I find myself taking that art back to the studio to put the final touches on.
Mhm.
But you're quite right. My art, my approach is to focus on a moment that the client would like me to paint, and to give them a professional art piece, and to see that unfold throughout the event from sketch all the way to painting. And it's very much a professional piece of art. And I think they deserve that. I think it's very important that they come away with something that is of high quality, and that's my focus in producing that particular special piece of art on that day.
Fantastic. So, I mean, let's talk us through sort of your process and experience. What does a wedding day look like for you? Which kind of moments do you choose to paint, and what sort of preparation do you do before the event itself?
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, it all starts through consultations with the couple beforehand, and I really do encourage that. All too often, we order things online and through text, but I always, in my service to my clients, encourage. A good full-on conversation about their vision, what they want to achieve on the day, what's the moment they would like me to capture, what's the emotion that they would like me to bring, because artists paint with emotion and feeling. Bring me into your world, tell me your vision. Those aspects are really important. The more detail I have, the better I'm able to produce what they want on the day. Then, of course, we come in the lead up to the day, and there's a lot of logistics and a lot of organisation. I have a 200-point checklist the last time I counted of what I need to go through before every wedding. Absolutely, because there's no room for error. Everything's planned, if I may say, to military precision. So before that event, it will go through that checklist to make sure everything. I've got the equipment, everything's in place. Then we come to the wedding day, and I always seem to be the first to arrive and the last to leave. But that's the name of the game, because I tend to arrive 2 hours before guests arrive, just to set up my equipment mainly, but also to assess the composition. What one must understand is that the duty of an artist is to show you a world that you wouldn't otherwise see, and to take you to a place where I give you a new perception of reality. So what that means for me as an artist is that I'm deciding what's in and out of scope of the piece that I'm going to paint. I'm planning that painting before guests arrive, before I'm putting pen to paper. If I see a clock or a flower piece that's on the right hand side of the room that needs to go into the picture, then I'll move it. I'll paste that into the, I'll draw that in rather into the piece. So there's that planning that happens beforehand. Guests arrives, they will see me drawing, sketching. Now, watercolour is a slightly different medium, well, a very different medium to others, in that I cannot begin painting before the event starts. So I can't start by the background painting, because I cannot then put flesh colour or a light colour on top of a dark background. It all has to happen real time. So once I've finished the sketching, just part of the sketching moment, the key thing, and this is the challenge, is getting that picture, that shot, because that is what artists use as their reference throughout the day into the night. I need to get that picture, that special moment. It might be the kiss, it might be the exchange of vows. I become that photographer for that moment, and that can be quite nerve-wracking. But touch wood, so far I've managed to get all the shots on time without a hiccup. Once I've got that shot, I will then use that as essentially my reference piece throughout the day, into the evening, perhaps even into the night, finishing the painting. But more importantly, interacting with guests. And I think that's a really important point here. This is not simply about me situated in a corner of a room or painting solo, but also engaging guests, having them have a look at the painting, talk to them about the process. And one of my aims is to ensure that once I've finished a wedding event, that perhaps I've inspired somebody to pick up a paintbrush and to try art and that creativity themselves.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. I mean, I've always, I think, quite famously said to people, I can't I can't do art, I can't draw for toffee. And then I think it was, in fact, I know it was shortly after COVID. I remember thinking to myself, I'd really love to be able to just draw. So I bought a book, Learn to Draw in 30 Days, thought, yeah, not a chance. And actually, I think one of the things that shocked me about it is that, like many things, that the basics of art are just about knowing how to put the right thing in the right place and get the right kind of depth and then texture.
Yeah.
But then, of course, beyond that, I think, like you say, it's about emotion and feeling and experience and knowledge and looking at something and going, that doesn't look quite right. I know how to fix it. I need to do this or I need to do that. And of course, I think that's the difference, isn't it, between somebody like me who can pick up a pencil and maybe do a fun sketch of something that takes 20 minutes versus the masterpiece of arts that I can see in your background there and that look utterly fantastic.
And of course, it didn't started that way. This has all come about, as you've alluded to track training, practice, learning from failure. May I say, learning from failure and picking yourself up and then continuing and then addressing that. And my art has always. I remember putting a piece of art, 3 pictures of when I started. So my favourite scene is this London scene with a bus. And that was my first picture, and I remember posting this on LinkedIn, followed by a few years after that another picture, and then a few years after that another picture, showing the progression of that art. And the difference between when I started to where I am now was phenomenal. The difference was quite stark. So that was quite interesting, I have to say. And it's about practice, it's about learning, and continuing to master your craft.
I think it is, isn't it? I think it's great being able to self-reflect as well. I mean, I remember when I started learning how to perform magic when I was a kid, and then I joined the army at 16. And I was told then that I was pretty good, and then I did a few events in the regiment, and I was told you're getting better, which I thought was fantastic. And then 7 years ago, I moved to London thinking I'm a pretty good magician. And I look back now and I think, how did I ever think that? I was awful. But now I know that
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
I'm at the level I'm at. And I think
Indeed.
it's a real interesting escalation, isn't it, of self-reflection when you can do that. So what's been the most challenging wedding or commission that you've had to date? What kind of challenges has that raised for you and how did you overcome them?
Um, Well, I remember a time when I was asked to, it was a big A2, it was one of my largest canvases or watercolor pads I tend to use at these events. And I was asked to paint a scene of a couple, but also to include a number of guests into the piece. And it all went very well. I'd taken my reference photograph and I began painting the scene. And for some reason, I had left the left-hand side of the canvas virtually blank. I hadn't actually got to that side yet to paint the scene. And then once the couple had a look at the picture, they said, "Oh, by the way, that my nephew's missing from the scene." And as I mentioned to you, with watercolor, it's very difficult to grab or paste somebody into a scene once you started painting it.
Mm.
And so I kind of and she was really it was really important that this individual was in the painting. Um, and of course, what happened was they'd arrived late and we hadn't noticed that
Right.
this individual had to be into the picture. So of course, what I did was to find this individual. I took a picture of them separately in the stance that I would have liked them to be in the painting,
Mm.
and began cropping them into the scene. And it turned out to be pretty good, I have to say, as if they were at that moment. But the pressure of things like that changing partway through your painting can be quite stressful and can be quite challenging. The worst I've come across is when I've had to capture a kiss, and then suddenly the memory on my iPhone has completely filled up, and it just won't take any more pictures. I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I've just missed the moment. How am I going to recover from this? So of course asked the photographer to see if they could recreate that scene for me to take that picture. But those are the really kind of difficult moments for me. Otherwise, everything just falls into play, as I say, because of the planning, and just rely on your training and your expertise, I suppose.
I suppose so. So I suppose, and I think the obvious answer to this question is yes. But how do you find that live painting changes the way that you perceive a wedding day versus just seeing it through a lens?
Um, well, as I say, the job and the duty of an artist is to give you or give the client, our observer, a new perspective of reality, and that's what I bring to the table. So let's take an example of the wedding dress.
Yeah.
Wedding dress tend to come, two colors, white or cream, and there are other colors as well. Particularly if you go to an Asian wedding, you'll get beautiful reds and all sorts of embroidery garments. Um, but what I see in a white dress, I will see colours of gold. I will see reds bouncing off the shadows. I will see some greens. And I feel it's my job as an artist to bring and embellish those colours through art. Um, I also think some of the scene that doesn't quite sit right. The composition is unbalanced. And so what I'll do is if there's one plant on one side of the room, then I'll replicate that plant on the other, or produce a different plant of some kind to give some balance. And then what I love doing is giving a sense of perspective. So leading the eye into a particular point on the canvas, so it's then drawn to a different area of the canvas or the picture or the scene, as opposed to filling it up with lots of detail and it all becomes a little bit jumbled and you're wondering where to look. So that's for me is the artistry that I live wedding artists or bring to a wedding scene. So it's given us a different sense of reality. It's improving what one may see. And also, I think what's really important is giving likeness as well. That's the element that I think needs to be right, needs to be the reality that you see, that the likeness is there. And that's what clients expect of me.
Hmm. Yeah, fantastic. So, and I mean, in my head, I've got a very particular kind of image now that I'm thinking about with this question, because the thought process here is how do clients and guests at weddings usually react when they see the piece now? And I imagine that, I suppose, much like with performing magic, that there's going to be two reactions, right? There's going to be the in the moment, oh wow, oh my god, that's amazing, absolutely fantastic. And then there's the more considered reaction that comes later, where people come to you and go, so what's some of the most interesting reactions that you've had?
Yes, I think it depends on what stage you are in the painting process, because watercolor can look very ugly in its early stages. When you
Yeah.
apply a wash onto a background, it's just almost blobs of color. There's no values or no shadows that begin to bring the scene to life. I also use a technique where I apply masking fluid, which is this horrendous milky substance that I apply to the painting to protect the white of the original paper. So as I'm applying my color, as the masking fluid has already dried, once I've come towards the end, I then rub it out and then all this white sort of pops at the paper. Yeah, it's a very clever technique, but it doesn't lend on the eye as a beautiful painting once it's actually on the canvas. And you can get kind of slightly different reactions from clients at the point at which they've seen the painting. What I'm more interested in, I think my clients and guests appreciate art. And they're interested in the process. They're interested in how I'm approaching a painting. And they ask very informed and very interesting questions. And they know that, by the end of the evening, they're going to see something lovely. They're going to see something very different than what they've seen before. So the reactions have all been very complimentary, I have to say, to date. All my clients or couples have loved their pieces of art. But of course, as I said, it doesn't finish there because I have to then take the art to the studio,
Yeah.
add more highlights. I tend to add gold leaf as well, which is quite an unusual technique in watercolor, gold and silver leaf. So the light pops. Not too much. You have to be very subtle with these things, but that's been lovely. And then once it goes behind a mount and also in a frame, you get a very different perspective of the scene as well. So very different reactions, I suppose, depending on where we are in that process, but very much feel all complementary and very considered.
That's amazing. So I guess, yeah, I guess it really is, isn't it? It's about the process that people see, because if you go into a shop and buy a piece of art, what you're actually buying is a picture that you like the look of. Whereas I suppose your clients know that not only are they going to get a picture which they're going to more than like the look of, they're going to love it because it captures a special moment of their day. They also get to recall seeing the process of that coming to life throughout the whole celebration. Are there any kind of specific requests that you tend to get a lot, or maybe trends that you're seeing coming up that you think this is going to be interesting?
Um, I mean, the favourite scene everybody, well, I tend to paint quite a lot of is, of course, the ceremony scene, and it's either the kiss or exchange of vows. That is a very common scene. Um, Various other weddings, very different cultural weddings that can be very different, I have to say. But what's been quite interesting to me, and I'm seeing this increase quite a lot of in some of the requests I get in terms of my painting, is that I actually paint individuals or pets that I have that are not at the ceremony itself. So very much so, they would like their dog or pet at the ceremony, and would like me to paint that into the scene, and that's quite special. The most special one, which I was very touched by, was sadly when individuals who have sadly passed away, that they would like to capture in the scene. And I suppose that goes to your question about what's the difference between painting and lens. Yeah, when I'm given a quick request like that, it's actually quite moving, and even more so once the painting is finished, and if they're going for the kind of big reveal, so they haven't seen the painting from the beginning of sketch to until the very end, that can be quite a moving moment. And I've had couples literally tears of joy, if I can call it that, seeing their loved one who has passed away, you know, um, in a wedding scene where they're perhaps taking their vow during that ceremony.
That's amazing. That really is good. That yeah, as a concept, because I suppose I would never have thought of that, but I suppose that's a really beautiful way of having somebody included that, as you say, isn't able to be there, which I think for the right client could be quite magical in a way.
Yes.
Now, I often think about, again, certainly for the kind of circles I work in, like with magicians or what have you, my life has very much affected the way that I perform, the way that I interact with people. And I mentioned it right at the top of the episode here. Of course, you're the wonderful recipient of an OBE. How has that shaped and influenced your creative journey, if you will?
Yeah, so my OBE isn't in art, unfortunately, but it is in other things. So my OBE is for services to policing and education.
Oh wow!
And that's the route, yeah, that's the route I took as a young man, looking for a career and wanting to work in these areas. I was a police officer in the first instance, about 14 years in the 1990s, and then alongside that, I was also a civil servant. So I did those two roles as a policy civil servant. But to your question, in terms of those sorts of disciplines, I think it's first of all given me a sense of the importance of talking, interacting, consulting, and getting people's feedback as to what they would like. And what they want to achieve. I think there's a sense of organisation, a procedure in that. As I said, I take this kind of logistics side of things, particularly from the policing, into my wedding approach to make sure everything goes to plan and to time. Um, And I think it's also my critical eye in detail. I've worked on quite a number of exciting policies, the Department of Education, reviews, legislation. And what's always key there is attention to detail and making sure that that comes through, whether you're advising ministers or writing a particular policy for the public. And that's that keen eye attention to detail that I think I bring to my art. I'm very self-critical of my work, but that's the way you improve, isn't it? And that's the way you make those changes moving forward for the for the good of the customer or the client.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So how then, sort of coming forwards in life, how is then being such an integral part of somebody's wedding day and having a unique position as you've got taught you more about life and love and people and celebrations?
Well, I think for me, it's about the interaction with our clients, understanding their needs, and I'm really recognizing that this is the most important day of their life. They're spending a huge amount of money, huge sums of money, investing a lot of their time, making that one day very special to bring joy and emotion. And I think for me, you know, I sometimes wish that, think life or other instances just be like that on a regular basis. The joy and emotion I see of people at a wedding, where everyone's happy, interacting well, really for the benefit and delight of the of the couple, and the entertainment that goes on and the work that goes on behind the scenes. It just for me gives a very lovely snapshot of humanity, and the good of life and characteristics that you see at a wedding. And I think for me that's the kind of learning, if you like, I like to bring into the world of work. Just be kind, be nice, you know, and and be joyful, because life is very short. It doesn't last long, and I just think it's very important to bring those very important values into play.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. So, what kind of advice would you give to couples who are considering maybe booking a live artist for their wedding day?
Um, First of all, look at a range of artists. Every artist will come with their own unique style, and you need to perhaps look at their work. On my Instagram page, for instance, I'll have all my work on and reels as well, so you'll see exactly how I interact with clients. So if you can get a taster of previous work, of what they've done, reviews, and of course what their work looks like. That's very, very important. That's I think the first step. Second is obviously making that contact and perhaps having a chat. So I always recommend, this is not a service that should be ordered, by email, and then an artist simply turns up on the day. It involves a lot of prep, a lot of chat beforehand to understand what your vision is. And I would encourage couples to talk with emotion, talk with, be very descriptive in what they want, the vision that they want to achieve. And don't be shy about the changes that you wish to make in your painting. It's your painting, it's your keepsake. It will be hanging on your wall for many, many, many years to come. So it's your moment to make sure you make the most of your time with your artists. Um, and then I think sometimes it depends on the couple, but some couples like to have the surprise at the end. But if you're not minded about that, have a look at how the art is developing at various stages during the day. So I'll always encourage my couples to come at the sketch stage while I'm sketching. And that's a good point to say, oh, I like that, or can you feature this person in? I remember I was sketching the front row, and the mother-in-law was missing from the. I don't know why, but she wasn't there. We said, "Oh, could you make sure?" That would have caused a huge load of politics, I have to say. Oh, had that individual been missing, so very important to do so, and just to engage, and then just relax and trust your artists. They you would have appointed them on their previous work. You would have got a sense of what they're like and their personality, and just enjoy the day and not worry about what they're doing. They will produce for you a beautiful piece of art. I'm sure of it.
Fantastic. Some fantastic advice there. So, a couple of questions about you. If you could go back and personally witness and then paint any historical event, wedding or otherwise, what would it be?
Oh, goodness me. Um, Not a particular event per se, a particular era. I would love to go back to the 1940s, 50s, where trilby hats, pocket watches, fountain pens, and pinstripe suits were all the rage. And I would love to paint particularly a jazz scene. I would love to be in that particular dress myself, I hasten to say. But also at that same point in time, painting a jazz scene, perhaps a quartet, quartets. That would be my favorite scene to paint and era.
Yeah, that sounds great. And is there a piece of artwork that you've ever done as a commission, and when you finished it, you wish that you'd been able to keep it?
Yes, many I have to say, but the ones that really kind of fit the bill there are I do quite a lot of military commissions. Whether it be military events that I've catered at or mess dinners, but there are a few that I've really painted extremely well, and I thought to myself, "Goodness me, I would love to keep that." Buildings are a good favourite of mine, there are a few buildings that I've painted where I've got the shadowing just right, the sunlight has been a beautiful day, and it's just been the right conditions,
Yeah.
and the painting's just so beautiful. And I suppose I'd wish I'd kind of produced some prints at the very least, but it's the client's piece of work, and it is theirs. So have been a few pieces indeed that I wish I had kept for myself. Maybe I'll go back and try and replicate, but never with watercolor. Never two paints are the same, I have to say. Yeah, they're always very unique to themselves.
I suppose even if you painted them side by side, they'd still be different, right?
Totally.
Well, listen, Patrick, it's been an absolute joy chatting to you today. Before we go, please do tell everybody where they can see you, where they can find you, where they can learn more about you.
Certainly. So I mainly post my work and reels on Instagram. My profile name is P Heisel, Heisel, P Heisel Art. You'll find it on Instagram. There's a lot of interesting reels on there. And then, of course, there's my website, which will have a host of information there should you wish to book me for one of your events. And that's pheiselart.com. Thank you.
Fantastic stuff. Patrick, absolute lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much. And we'll catch up soon. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And there you have it, folks. A huge thank you to the incredibly talented Patrick Heisel for joining me today and sharing a glimpse into the delicate magic of live event painting and the watercolours that he produces, which are fantastic. I've seen his Instagram feed and his website. It really is worth going to take a look. And remember, if you're looking for a wedding keepsake that truly does stand the test of time and captures the spirit of your day in brushstrokes rather than pixels, then head over to Patrick's website, pheiselart.com, and look at his work. It really is worthwhile. It's been another great episode of the Supplier Spotlight Podcast with me, Liam Ball, your magical wedding host. Don't forget, please, to do like, subscribe, and share. And if you're planning your own magical day, head over to my website at yourmagicalweddinghost.com for some free wedding planning tools, supplier recommendations, and a little bit of extra magical wonder. Until next time, folks, stay safe and take care.